I'd like to welcome you. My name is Judy Levine, and this is my studio. This is called the Studios on Macintosh, and this is a place that I love. And I make jewelry here as well as sculpture and collage. Some of the necklaces that I make are here in the cabinet. And they're from my travels. And when I travel, I collect beads because they fit in your suitcase and they're not too heavy. And I collect pendants. And that's a good starting point for making an impressive necklace. These beads are all from Tibet. And they're old, they're silver, turquoise, coral, carnelian, and putting it together is joyful for me. These are beads from China. These are sewn on antique clothing, and so each of my necklaces have a story. So let's get started so you can make your own necklace. This is basic bead stringing, and tune in for some other less basic styles. But what you're going to need is some tools, some materials. The first material you're going to need for making your beads is a snipper. And this one you can buy at Michael's or probably any other hobby shop. And it cuts the wire. And the wire is what we use for stringing. This is called AccuFlex. It's professional weight. And if you were to buy just one roll of AccuFlex, I'd order 0.19. That's the thickness. And what distinguishes this from what you could buy at a hobby shop is that it's more flexible, it's stronger, and it's really worth investing. And I don't work for AccuFlex. But AccuFlex, 49 strands, softest drape when you go to order. So now you have what you're going to be stringing your beads on, cutting your wire, and the next tool is needle nose pliers, and that's for squashing your crimps at the end. So if you have nothing else, these are the basic tools. I've even used a toenail clipper if you don't have a wire cutters. And I always use a little crazy glue, the liquid type that's like nail polish with a little brush on the end at the end for making your clasp strong. So these are some basic tools. You probably have some around the house. I use clips so that I clip the ends of my wire so that my beads don't come off. How to get started. You may have some beads around your house that you could upcycle, take apart some jewelry and use some beads. You can go to your local hobby store or Fire Mountain Gems or a bead show that comes to your local town and assemble some necklaces here in a bead board. These beads are all one color. Lights and darks, textures and smooth, but they're all in the amber color range. And I lay them out in a bead board. This is going to be a multi-strand necklace, all one color, lights and darks, monochrome. This one is starting with purple, and I love the combination of amber and green with my purple. And so I lay my necklace out in a bead tray. If you don't have a bead tray, a dish towel will do. I've started here with a pendant, and we call that a focal point. That's the beginning of your necklace. It could be a bead. And then I just laid out what other beads I might use. You can take them away. You can use size. You can say this is too big. Let's substitute it with a smaller bead, maybe these Tibetan clay beads would be nice in between, but you just lay it out. And I always include some transition beads because I don't like one bead knocking against the other. There's always a bead in between, and we call it a transition bead. So your focal point can be a pendant, it can be a bead. There are two kinds of necklaces, symmetrical and asymmetrical. In this tray with the purple beads, this is a symmetrical necklace, same on one side as it is on the other. And I took out all the beads that I thought I might use, including those purpley pearls in the tray. And when I looked at it, they were too strong for me to use. I wanted something more subtle. So again, I started with a pendant in the middle. I string up one side, because what if I don't like it? Then I have to restring the whole necklace. So this is a symmetrical necklace, again, same on one side as it is on the other. And I use these little bead stoppers you can buy in a hobby store, because when you hold it up to try it on, how many times they've fallen right out of my hands and the beads went all over and all your work was for nothing. So a bead stopper, if nothing else that you have in the house, these big clips will work, little paper clips will work. This necklace is asymmetrical. Again, there's bead stoppers. I love to shop at Goodwill and secondhand stores. This is a Art Deco bead, a mask bead, and it's pretty heavy. It has a lot of visual weight to it. So in an asymmetrical necklace, you have to balance it like a seesaw. One side has to balance the other. So this brown Chinese sewing container is balancing this brown mask on the other side. The bottom of the necklace doesn't have a pendant. The focal point is that mask that's on the side. When I got started with this necklace, I looked at the colors in the pendant, and then I looked through my stash of beads and decided that I wanted to pick up some of this is amethyst color, some purples, and the pearls. And there were different colors of pearls, but when I began laying out my necklace, I felt this was too strong a color, so I eliminated it. I added some iridescent colors. These are called potato pearls. I added some very light pink crystals and some small spacer pearls. Because, as I said before, I never like one bead to be knocking against another. So these are called transition beads, all of these small beads that, and this is called a sequence of beads that I can replicate in the next section of the necklace. As I said before, I only design and string one side. What if I hate it? Then that means I have to restring the whole necklace. So I work out the design on one side of the necklace, and then when I say, yep, feels good, then I make it on the other side. This necklace, again, is an asymmetrical necklace. One thing that we work with in jewelry making and in other areas of art is called visual weight. And this is a pretty heavy looking piece. It's a wooden mask, and I engineered it to go onto the necklace. It was a pin that I found in a consignment shop. So I added that on one side. There are two sizes of these gold beads, and this is the focal point on this necklace, whereas the amethyst pendant was the focal point on the purple one. So I needed to balance visually this mask, so I used this antique Chinese sewing box, and the brown of each balances the necklace. The necklaces now are longer because people are wearing longer tops. So I've been working on longer necklaces. And there are little spacer beads in between each of these beads. Again, it gives it light and it gives it some color. This is a shorter necklace, but again, there are transition beads in between. And what you need to do to get started is to measure out a piece of wire from your AccuFlex and make sure, I always do this, I make sure that I have at least 4 inches extra on each end. A short necklace is 9.5 inches and then 4 more, so I would say 14 inches, 28 inches on each side, but I don't do it that way. I just hold it and then add some extra. Clip it, lay out my wire, lay out my beads, and begin. Once you've assembled your necklace, you love it, you're ready to wear it, you're going to have to end it. And these are the materials you're going to need to end your necklace. This is called an S-hook. So when you order it, this is what I like. There are many different kinds of clasps, but I prefer this, and I prefer sterling. It may be a few dollars more, but it's strong. This is shaped like the letter S, and it comes with 2 little rings on each side called jump rings. I use a 4mm bead with a large hole. And I use 2 crimps, corrugated crimps, and that's what they're called, and that's how you order them. So you need your hook, your jump ring, your millimeter bead, and your 2 crimps, belt and suspenders. That's what I call them. You're going to have your beautiful necklace. Don't unclip both sides. Just keep one side open and do one side at a time. If I'm using large beads, I always like a transition at the end. And so I've added another small bead. Then comes your 4mm bead, your 2 crimps, you're going to string those on. They get away from you, they're small. And you're going to string this extra end through your jump ring. You're going to come back the other way, back through the crimp. 1 crimp, bring it up. The 2nd crimp and the bead. And you have a tail that's hanging. Press it up with your nail, and with the very back of your needle nose pliers, you're going to squash those crimps as hard as you can, and that will flatten it out and keep it steady and sturdy. What do you do with the tail? You hide it in your beads. And you string back and back and back as far as you can go. Only then can you, this is closed on one side, and you unhook the other side and repeat the process. You're going to put your larger bead in. Make sure that bead has a hole that you can come back through with your Acuflex. I'm stringing my crimp, if I can see it. There we go. Here's the second one. That's called belt and suspenders. You put your wire through your jump ring, back through your 2 crimps. There's one. There's 2. This side needs a sense of humor. Okay. Put it through your last large bead. Thread it through some beads. That's your tail that's hanging down. Your extra. All right, you're going to pull this down. You need to hold on to your jump ring and pull the extra, there you go, the extra through so there's no extra wire hanging. You come back, you squash your crimps. That keeps everything tight. And the best part of this wire cutter is you can tilt back your bead and it fits flat in here. You cut your extra wire off and you have a very strong closure with your S-clasp. Once your necklace is closed on both ends, your belt and suspender crimps, I put another layer of safety so that this necklace stays together. And I use the super glue with the brush like nail polish, and I just brush the super glue on the crimps and let it dry. I let it dry for probably an hour. And this just melds everything together. It gives me a good feeling. Just put it to the side, your necklace is done. It's a big wide world and you'll become as addicted to the beads as I am. So welcome to the world of jewelry design. We're going to recap a lot of the things that we talked about in the beginning. My materials list, you need some beads, some pendants, some amulets that you can find or collect. You need Acuflex stringing wire. You need some bead stoppers, these little guys, so that your beads don't fall off the wire. I use a bead board that you've seen in the beginning that can be purchased at a hobby shop or Fire Mountain Gems, or a plain towel that you saw before. You need a clasp like the S hook that I showed you, some pliers, some crimps, 4mm metal bead for the end, patience and good humor. My favorite beading wire, again Acuflex, 49 strands, softest drape. It's worth the little investment. It's about $16. There are other kinds of wires that you can string beads on. You can find them at your hobby shop. Some of you might have used elastic or memory wire, colored wire. If you're going to invest in one container of Acuflex, I would use 0.19. And there it is, my favorite. Here's a bead board. Again, they're available from Fire Mountain Gems or your local hobby store. That's how I lay out my designs. I probably have dozens of them. I use a round nose pliers for making earrings. I use wire cutters. And I use my crimping pliers, which is just a needle nose plier way in the back of the mouth of the plier. And there they are. So this section is for you to refer back to when you're ordering or when you're assembling your tools. Necklace lengths. Short necklace that ends like this one, right at the opening of a blouse. It's about 9.5 inches on each side plus your tail. So add another 5 inches on each side. Chest length, a little longer, and waist length for the ladies who are wearing the longer shirts. Those are probably about 23 inches. Styles of necklaces. Since I collect beads from all over the world, I use a lot of antique beads, a lot of ethnic beads, but there's modern ones as well, like the ones that we're using here or the ones you saw in my jewelry case. We talked about composition, asymmetrical, and symmetrical. I start with a pendant or a big bead on my symmetrical, same on one side as it is on the other, and you can see an example of that. Beads and elements are the same on one side as it is on the other. And as I said before, I only design one side of the necklace, string it up, see if I like it, and if I do, I duplicate it. If I want to change something, then I only have half the necklace to take apart. So symmetrical, same on one side as it is on the other, and this has a bead as a center point. Asymmetrical, beads and elements are not the same on one side, and they're visually balanced with color and weight and comfort. And this is an example. This is a shorter necklace, different on one side as it is on the other. When you're working with color, I use contrast, I use texture. Here's a big bead in carnelian and a smaller, the same bead but smaller. Sometimes I'll use a smooth bead in the same color. I look at texture, compatibility. One is all one color with just some accent beads. The second is all different beads, but in the same color family, or picking up one color from another. Monochromatic, all one color, like you saw initially in the presentation with the carnelian beads and all the lights and darks. So that's a monochromatic, all one color. I use transition beads. They're called spacers so that one bead doesn't hit the other. And then I repeat it. So you can see the small sections of this necklace are kind of breather sections, and that's called a transition. I start with a pendant, and that's called a focal point. And then when I look at that pendant, I see what kinds of other beads are used in it, or other colors, and then I select my beads to go along with it. That's the focal point. And then these are different kinds of findings. When you go shopping at a hobby store, you can really take a look at these findings. This is a glossary for you to refer to, but these are different kinds of catches, different kinds of earring backs. And there's a glossary for you to take a look at. Clasps, alligator clasp, S-hook, and a toggle. When you're ending a necklace, you need good humor. You're going to need your 4 crimps, 2 on each side, 2 4mm beads with a large hole, and your catch. The catch has 2 jump rings on each end, and as I showed you before, I demonstrated how to end that necklace and put a little super glue on each side for belt suspenders so it dries and doesn't fall apart. There's different kinds of beads, glass and gems and wood and bone. There's smooth beads and faceted beads, crystal, dichroic beads that reflect the light. There's pearls of every sort. You order beads by the size, and this will be easy for you to remember. The higher the number, the larger the bead. Makes sense. So this is something you can refer back to if you're ordering online. The higher the number, the larger the bead. And these are example. The higher the number, the larger the bead. This is a beader's glossary. These are the different shapes that beads come in, so you can refer back. If you're ordering online or ordering in a hobby store, you know what size you want, and you know which one you want. You can refer to it as a lozenge bead or elongated bead. Findings. You need crimps, you need end beads, you need spacer beads, you need jump rings, you need bead caps. But again, this is another visual glossary for you to refer to when you're ordering. Different kinds of pearls. I showed you in the purple necklace before the different shapes of pearls. One tip is, if you're using pearls, I would use a 0.14 Acuflex wire, because pearls have a smaller opening in them. Again, this is another glossary of findings and also tools at the bottom. So you can take a look. You can write down what you're going to need, and go to your Harbor Freight or your Michaels or Hobby Lobby to get your materials. There's lots of magazines available. You can look at them online. Bead and Button magazine, Bead Style, Stringing, Art Jewelry, Ornament. These are all resources that come out monthly, bi-monthly, that you can take a look at for ideas. Internet sites, Fire Mountain Gems. Ask them for a free catalog. That's a real learning curve for you. Beads Galore, another site for buying and looking. I use Rio Grande for a lot of my turquoise and my silver. Shipwreck beads, they also have wonderful beads to order online. But your hobby stores have great selection, and when I go, I always have my 40% off coupon handy. So I thank you, I wish you good luck, and when you are working, I'd love it if you would take a picture of your work and send it to me, Judy Levine at Verizon.net. That's JudyLevine at Verizon.net. Good luck, enjoy. You're going to be as addicted as I am. I have thousands and thousands of beads. Thank you.